So there I was on a last-minute TBM ferry from Florida to California. And lo and behold, when I crossed that Louisiana border, I looked down at my iPad and I had no charts or plates. And at first, I couldn't figure out what had happened, because the night before, I had set up the iPad to download the charts and let it run all night. And the next morning, I had viewed them on my iPad. So you can see why I was surprised that I had no charts in the airplane. Let me tell you, I learned quite a few things from that experience.
The lesson here is big enough that we're going to call it out as an advisory. When your iPad is connected to the internet, either via Wi-Fi or through 3G or a 4G wireless data network, all of your charts will look like they've been downloaded. It's when you disconnect from the internet by going into airplane mode, those charts may just disappear. And the last place you want to find out that you're missing charts is in the air. So that leads us to our next pro tip. Pro tip number 5 is you need to pre-flight the iPad in airplane mode. So before I walk out the door, I pre-flight my iPad. I've got a simple checklist that I run to make sure I've done all the bits and pieces. The first thing is the battery charged? And if it's not, then I make sure I've got an external power resource, or I'm going to charge the iPad. The second, are my databases current? The third is, did I load the root structure into the apps? The fourth, are my favorite charts and approach plates marked? And the fifth is, did I actually test the iPad in airplane mode? So let's take a look at this using the 3 apps that I normally fly with. You can see the first thing is the battery charged? In the upper right hand corner, 97%. Well, that works for me. The second, are my databases current? So we'll go into Preflight. I'm going to tap the More tab in the lower right hand corner. You can see the first thing is downloads, and I'm going to scroll the list, making sure the databases are indeed current. The next thing I check is, are the routes loaded? So I'll go to Maps. I can see the nav log and the route structure in the upper right hand corner. Next, have I marked my favorite airports and approach plates? When I've finished with that in Preflight, I go to the next app that I fly with, in this case, Jeppesen Mobile Flight Deck. Now, are my databases current? I'll tap the gear symbol in the upper right hand corner. You can see down here it says available updates, terminal charts, and en route are current. Next, did I load the route in? And finally, have I marked my favorite approach plates? So in this case I move on to the next app, which is going to be Flight Guide IEFB. I come on into it. Are my databases current? So I tap the Downloads tab at the bottom. As the list comes up, I scroll it. You can actually see the chart dates. Next, I'll tap the Flight Plan tab and check the route. And then again, did I mark my favorite airports and approach plates? Now, once I've done all that, the final step is to actually place the iPad into airplane mode. So I'm going to go to Settings. I'm going to tap airplane mode and turn it on and get the airplane symbol in the upper left-hand corner. And now I systematically go through the 3 apps that I fly with, Flight Guide IEFB, and I'm checking here to make sure A, I can pull up my airports and approach plates, but B, most importantly, I want to go to the en route chart and zoom and pan the route, making sure when I zoom out, it actually fills in the actual chart. And I do this with every app. I now go to Jeppesen Mobile Flight Deck, I pull up an approach plate, then I'll change to a different approach plate. Typically, I'll leave it on the taxi diagram for the airport that I'm departing. So here's Boeing Field's taxi diagram. Then I go to the route chart, and I pan and zoom, making sure that when I zoom out, the chart is still there. And again, I do this with every app, so I'll finish this off with Preflight. Here's Preflight. I can pull up my airports. I'll tap the Map tab. I'll zoom and pan on the en route chart. Actually pan across the route, and then making sure when I zoom out, that gray fills in with the actual chart. In Preflight, I'll actually go to the Plates tab, and I like to pull up the binder, and I'll select different charts in here, and then I'll finish with the actual taxi diagram for the airport I'm departing, which again, in this case is Boeing Field. So now that you've seen how we pre-flight the iPad, we run that simple checklist, you have to remember, you've got to do this because you don't want to be one of those pilots in the air who has to declare an emergency, and when air traffic control asks you what's the nature of the emergency, you'll have to respond with, well, I don't have any charts because I forgot to pre-flight my iPad.